Good morning, everyone. And for the folks dialing in virtually, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're dialing in. Thank you for joining us today for this session on Boost Cloud and AI ROI using the Microsoft Marketplace. My name is Rajesh Ramankutty, and I'm the Director of Marketplace Marketing. And I have the unique privilege of having one of our amazing customers joining us in the session today. I want to have 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗍𝗶𝗁 introduce himself. Matt.
Thanks, Raj. 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗍𝗶𝗁. I'm currently the Commercial Director for Infrastructure and Information Security for Mars.
Great to have you, Matt, and thank you for your time today.
Pleasure being here. Thanks for having me.
So this is the agenda for today. Very simple. We'll talk about Marketplace and the future of procurement. Matt will share with us his Marketplace journey at Mars, and then we'll close out with some next steps and resources, and we'll be around to answer questions. There are also other Marketplace colleagues in the room with us, and they're also available to help you with any questions that you may have. So let's get going. Now, I know this is only day 2 of Ignite, but you probably heard quite a bit of this thing called AI. It's the sign of our times. Every organization, to some degree, is evaluating how to adapt and re-platform to this new AI-centric world. And it has its own challenges. In fact, there's this pressure, you could say, or tension between time to market and time to value. Now, what does that mean? For example, do you buy third-party applications or do you build it in-house? In order to make your applications intelligent, you have to infuse it with data. But how do you ensure the security of that data? And I would say there's even this case of FOMO, so to speak, where there's so much external pressure to do something where you end up investing, and you also need to make sure what you're investing in is future ready, say 3 or 5 years down the line. There's literally, I feel, a new AI announcement, an exciting update literally every week. So how do you ensure the investments that you make today are future-proof 3 or 5 years down the line? Now, speaking of investments, the FinOps practice is getting more and more important. The management of cloud investment from a performance and cost perspective is an important consideration. So this survey that you see here was done by the FinOps Foundation, and the two highest priorities that came out in the survey was workload optimization and waste reduction, and full allocation of cloud spending. They also found out the focus on SaaS spend and AI spend was increasing year over year. So if you're sitting in your seats right now, and if you're dialing in virtually, and these 3 things are kind of rattling around in your head, which is, hey, how do I identify the right AI apps and agents? How do I procure them efficiently? And then how do I ensure the security and governance? Well, great news. I have good news for you. And I have the answer. And the short answer is the Microsoft Marketplace. Now, you can clap if you want, but you've probably heard about us reimagining the Microsoft Marketplace. And what we have done is we've consolidated the Azure Marketplace and App Source into one single storefront for you to source cloud solutions, AI apps, and agents. And on this Microsoft Marketplace, you will find the best-in-class AI apps and agents to support diverse use cases. We have a catalog of solutions across industries that give you a single source to discover, try, and buy. And then we also extend the Marketplace to our in-product experience. So for example, as a partner, you can publish on our Microsoft Marketplace, and based on certain criteria, some of those applications will be curated into our products like Teams, D365, and Microsoft Foundry. So what this helps our customers is to seamlessly move from discovery to deployment. And we have thousands upon thousands of applications on our Microsoft Marketplace. We spent the initial part of building our Microsoft Marketplace to ensure we worked with the most industry-leading partners to ensure that the solutions were transactable and available on our Microsoft Marketplace. And I'm proud to announce we have the largest catalog of AI apps and agents in the industry on the Microsoft Marketplace. So if you're looking for an AI app and agent, you will most probably find it on the Microsoft Marketplace. And I know we're talking about Microsoft Marketplace in general, But if you're new to marketplaces, I just want to call out, this is the next stage in, I would say, digital transformation. Cloud computing is roughly growing at around 20-21% year over year, or compound annual growth rate. Cloud marketplaces are growing at 4 times that, at 84%. And it makes total sense, right? So we have a lot of customers. Obviously, they are on the cloud. An average enterprise customer manages around 600 applications. So once your customer is on the cloud, how do you get these 600 suppliers onto the cloud with you and partnering with you? The best and only way to do that is through cloud marketplaces. So I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of this larger trend around cloud marketplaces, and we're happy to be a part of that trend. So I know there was 3 things I wanted to cover. How do you find AI apps and agents? It's on the Microsoft Marketplace. Now let's pivot a little bit in terms of, once you find this AI app and agent, how do you actually procure them? And again, within the Microsoft Marketplace, we provide you the functionality and features to have control over how you procure. For example, you can set up private offers with your customers that are customized exactly for your organization requirements. You can set up your billing in a manner that works for you. You can do monthly billing, you can do annual billing, you can do upfront billing, you can do metered billing. And now with flexible billing, you can actually tell your publishers and suppliers that you want to be billed on a specific date for a specific amount. Similarly, if you are one of those customers where it takes you months to onboard a new supplier, the Microsoft Marketplace is the way to shortcut that process. The Microsoft Marketplace, we did a study with Forrester, a total economic impact study. What we found in that study is the Microsoft Marketplace enables our customers to reduce their supplier onboarding time by 75%. So if you're working in months, transacting through the Microsoft Marketplace can shut that down or bring it down by days. And then the last thing, when you do transact through the Microsoft Marketplace, you can lock in your pricing over 3 or 5-year multi-year agreements. So it gives you the flexibility to work with your suppliers the way you want to work with them. I want to just bring out one more data point from the Forrester study. If you're on the customer procurement side, transacting through the Microsoft Marketplace reduces the time for an employee to complete a procurement engagement by 50%. And I know Matt has a few examples that he'll share in how they've learned from their experience at Mars. But the Microsoft Marketplace provides the control of buying in your hands. The other thing, and this is an important topic, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time here, is with respect to Microsoft Marketplace and Azure consumption commitment. Now, I think you might have heard of this term called MACC, not the desktop Mac, but MACC. It stands for Microsoft Azure Consumption Commitment. What it means is, as a customer, you can sign a commitment with Microsoft to consume X amount of Azure over a 3 or a 5-year period. And in return for the commitment, Microsoft gives you favorable discounting against that Azure consumption. Now, where Macs and marketplaces or Microsoft marketplaces align is any eligible transactable solution that you transact on the Microsoft Marketplace will decrement your customer's Mac 100% dollar for dollar. Let me just repeat that once again. Any eligible Mac solution that is transacted through the Microsoft Marketplace decrements your customer's Mac commitment 100% dollar for dollar, no caps. So think of it this way. I'll provide 2 scenarios. You're working with a customer. It's the last day of the quarter, last day of the fiscal year. They want to buy a solution, but they don't have budget for your solution. They can use the Mac. They can transact through the Marketplace, and they can use the Mac to procure that solution, right? So it's, I would say, one of the most generous benefits available that Microsoft provides to our customers in order for them to manage their Mac consumption commitment with us. And we have close to 4,000 Mac-eligible solutions. So there's a lot of partners, suppliers out there who have transactable solutions which are Mac-eligible. So if you're a customer with a Mac, make sure you're aware which of those solutions that you're procuring have a Mac-eligible status. And based on our current run rate right now, 85% of our customers who have Macs currently use the Microsoft Marketplace to complete those transactions. I mentioned 100% match, no limits. The other thing I'll call out, Microsoft is pretty generous with this. Our competitors, they don't have nearly as simple or generous decrement policies. So I want to call out, if you haven't thought about Marketplace and Max and Azure commitments, think of it as one package. The other thing I think that will come up is, okay, I know I have a Mac. I know I can find Mac-eligible solutions, or there are Mac-eligible solutions I can buy. How do I go about it? And there's a couple of different ways to go about it. You can find them directly on the Microsoft Marketplace. So on the Microsoft Marketplace, there is a category called Azure Benefit Eligible. If you select it, it'll give you all the Mac-eligible solutions that are available on the storefront. You can go directly into your Azure Portal Console. And again, there is a flag where you can take Azure Benefit Eligible. It'll show you all the eligible solutions. If you have an account team managing your account, you can ask them to send you an Excel sheet with all the Mac-eligible solutions. There's 4,000 of them, so this is going to be a pretty significant Excel sheet. But the last one, I think, would be helpful. So this is interesting. A lot of our partners have now built solutions that will help our customers identify the solutions and applications that they're running in their cloud environments and map it real time to our Mac-eligible list. So if you go to our Microsoft Marketplace storefront, and if you look up a partner by the name of Claysar or User Lane, they actually have these solutions that are available. Claysar, for example, will provide you a 3-month free trial, no cost involved. You can sign up, use the software for 3 months, identify the solutions that are running in your cloud environments, and map it to our Mac-eligible list. So there's solutions out there. There's multiple ways to look up these Mac-eligible lists. If you have any questions, happy to help after this call on how to look them up across all of these scenarios. So we talked about how do you find AI apps and agents. We talked about how do you procure them efficiently. Now let's talk a little bit of this other gorilla in the room, which is security. The thing to keep in mind is the Microsoft Marketplace is an extension of your Azure environment. So all the rules-based access controls that you set up for your Azure environment are mirrored and carried over to Marketplace. So if you set it up in such a way that there are only certain Azure employees who can spin up an Azure instance, that same rules will apply for Microsoft Marketplace. Those are the only employees who would be able to procure from the Microsoft Marketplace. Now, if you want to take this up a notch, you can also set up a private marketplace. Think of the private marketplace as a walled garden, where you, as the customer administrator, decides which applications you want your employees to procure from the marketplace. And you can curate those applications as a collection within the private marketplace. So based on how much security you want to build into your governance structure within Microsoft Marketplace, those functionality are available for you. As I mentioned, the Microsoft Marketplace is an extension of your Azure environment. So the tools that you have available to manage your Azure environment are also applicable for the Microsoft Marketplace. So for example, Azure Advisor is a great tool. It improves performance, security, and reliability of your cloud resources. So when you transact through the Microsoft Marketplace, not only the first-party solutions, but also our partner supplier solutions that you procure from the marketplace that's landing on your Azure tenant, you can govern that using Azure Advisor. And I'm very excited to announce this new functionality that's coming up. It's in private preview. We'll go GA in a couple of months, but it's our new PO management service. And what this does is it maps your marketplace spend. Yes, thank you, Matt. It maps your marketplace spend to your accounting needs. So for example, you're trying to transact with a supplier, your own internal procurement team has a PO. How do you align and reconcile that PO with the transaction? And that's what this PO management service does. And you can also ensure that if you are using a shared service within your organization, the PO management service will ensure that you're tagging the PO against the department that's funding that PO. Also, as part of the PO management service, you can upload the details into your supplier systems like Ariba. So very excited about this new PO management service. It's going to be GA in a couple of months. There's a QR code there. If you are interested in learning more, just take a quick picture. You'll get a small little form. If you fill up that form, happy to engage with you to answer any further questions and provide more details on this functionality. Now, I love this slide. This is a slide of, I would say, we had to make it really small font so that we could put in all our amazing customers. But if there's proof in the pudding, I would say this is the slide. These are the customers who actively transact through the Microsoft Marketplace. And the reason they do that is because it increases efficiency, they can buy with confidence, and they can spend smarter. And one of those amazing customers is on stage with me here. If you're looking at row 7, column 3, you'll see Mars, and Matt is here to talk more about them. Matt, over to you.
Thanks, Raj. So a little housekeeping. I think me and Raj are the only thing that's between you guys and lunch right now, right? So, and quick show of hands, who's my East Coast crew? Anybody? We're hungry, right? We're hungry, right? 3 hours, it hurts. So I'm gonna get up behind the lectern a little bit. I gotta move around, so just, indulge me a little bit. So again, Matt Hillegass, currently the Commercial Director of Infrastructure and Information Security at Mars. But I haven't always been in the procurement space, right? 20 plus years deep in the infrastructure and info security space, actually. So if you can build it, fix it, break it, right, in IT, me or my teams have probably done it. I made the jump over into commercial procurement a few years back. So I bring a little bit of a unique, we'll say perspective on why all this matters. Raj went really deep into the how and the what when it comes to marketplace. I'm gonna spend a little bit of time on the why, right? So Mars, right, we knew that we had some challenges in front of us, right? So why the marketplace for Mars? I looked at my team, very lean team like most companies this year or these days when it comes to procurement, and we needed quicker, more efficient ways to source what it is that we buy from the Citrixes, from the Microsofts, from the Palo Altos, et cetera, right? We needed to find one spot to go. Where can we pick up and go through and find these different applications that have been vetted out? We know that from a security perspective that we're gonna get what we need, right? We partnered deep with our legal teams as well as with our security teams and our finance teams to say, listen, if an offering sits in the marketplace, in this case with Microsoft Marketplace, these are all the controls that are in place, so we know we're good. Sounds like pretty straightforward business process. That takes hours and hours and days and months to get through. So that's why we really dove into the marketplace the way that we did. So our challenges, right, was how do we have that speed to procure, but with control, right? How do we have precision in our data? How do we know what's coming in and what's coming out from a cost perspective? How do we know that we don't have a lot of overlap when it comes to our application estate? For anybody in the room that's a software asset management person, you know exactly where I'm going with this. You've got multiple iterations of the same, sometimes, application out there, or you've got the same applications that do the same things, right? The overlap is tremendous. We were looking for an interface that helps us categorize and track all this. That's actually in the marketplace. Some of it's not GA yet, but it's part of the cab for marketplace. I get vision to a lot of what's coming up. That's all coming there. So it helps with it helps with how you procure and procure quicker. One of the biggest things that we looked at too at Mars is that we wanted to make sure that we had that holistic look. It's very important because my team partners, again, very closely with our legal teams, with our security teams, with our finance teams. We don't just contract on an island, right? We build these solutions all together. And I would ask, or just ask yourself, right? I'm sure everybody, if I was to go around the room, you guys probably have a recent example of where a procurement bottleneck impacted a project, right? I don't think anybody's gonna say, oh yeah, procurement, efficient, it's fast, never makes mistakes, right? There's ways to get better. Marketplace helps with that. One of the things that I liked about the early days of Marketplace back when it was Azure Marketplace, I've been told we can't call it that anymore, but no, it's Microsoft Marketplace. Back in the early days of Azure Marketplace years ago, was that I knew right away it was designed to fit the needs of the finance and the security and the operations. We knew that Microsoft was building something that we could use as procurement professionals, but more importantly, I could bring in the non-procurement teams, walk them through this catalog and say, listen, these are the apps that are out there, this is what we're gonna buy, this is why this is important, right? And they've iterated on it now to where we can search for specific types, right, of AI applications. I may need a certain specific, we'll say, solution set in the AI, silo. Now I can go find out what works best for my different segments, right? For those that know Mars well, right, we've got our snacking segment, we've got our pet segment, we've got our pet health segment, right, the veterinarian clinics, et cetera. Different AI solutions are needed. It's there in the marketplace. We don't have to go searching. We don't have to go and engage the big four firms or smaller experts, right? It's in one spot for us to go get it. One of the items too that when we look at reasons, again, for using the marketplace and like where's some examples, right? So a real world example just in the last couple of years, a Citrix renewal, right? And a Databricks renewal. This is gonna tie into what Raj was talking about earlier about the Mac, right? So for any of the large enterprise, medium, and I think even small enterprise customers of Microsoft, the Mac's a big deal. For those that have one, you know what I'm talking about. You know that there is pressure to make sure that you are consuming that thing in a very planned and precise way. And prior to the marketplace, the only way to do it was through consumption. That's it. It's the name of the game. Compute, memory, storage, right? Maybe some fabric usage, et cetera. Marketplace, you can put over the top of that and start to draw down. Because the biggest issue that we see sometimes is consumption plans, they're plans, right? Consumption targets get missed. We may have expected to draw down 20, 30 million this year. Well, maybe we don't. How do you make up for that, right? Marketplace helps offset that. So when we look at Databricks and we look at Citrix, again, we were able to really offset, some consumption concerns by looking at those larger renewals. I just use them just because for us in particular, they tend to be a little bit on the larger side. So for you ask yourself, right, have you ever had a project that was derailed because of late stage contract, issues? What do I mean by that? Planning goes into all these contract renewals. It takes time. So with Marketplace, we can move through quicker. Again, I mentioned earlier, a lot of the legal and the finance bits, it's already contained, it's already done. We've already got the approvals done. So we front load the risk reviews, right? The template alignments and the Mac integration, right? High level, the risk review, we all have to do it in our own different forms. For us, it's about bringing in the application or in some cases the services that we want to run. What does this look like, right? Every enterprise is going to have their specific vendor onboarding. Mars is no different. Ours is fairly in-depth. So by having all the vendor qualification work done ahead of time, that saves literally months. The template alignment for every private offer that we do, and for those that aren't familiar with private offers, Raj and the team, I'm sure can explain to you guys what that is. You go to the supplier, they're going to put together a private offer. It's a package just for your enterprise. But there's a template that we use that every private offer that Mars gets and accepts follows. Why does the template matter? Because then it looks, feels, and operates the same way. So we're not looking at different suppliers' papers. We're not looking at, can we negotiate, we're going to do this on Mars paper or we're going to do it on supplier X's paper. No. It goes through the Microsoft Marketplace template. That's it. You can get your own MSAs attached to it, which we do. You can take the click-through agreements if they're agreeable for you, right? So there's some flexibility in there. But later when you're going through your own internal or external audit exercises and you've got to pull up all your contracts, it's all the same look and feel. You can get through these, complications quicker. I mentioned about the Mac already. Unified governance, right? That predictable spend, the shared accountability. For us, right, it's about having those clear roles and responsibilities within the teams. So not just procurement, but again, within security and finance. For us, Marketplace really offers, it takes the guesswork, right, out of what AI offerings are out there. I mentioned that before. You can go through the Marketplace to look for particular items that might be of specific interest for you or your enterprise. It's just continually evolving. What governance challenges have you run into or have you faced? Right? Again, to get new, we'll say AI-centric solutions approved, there's a lot. You got to typically go through your AI boards. There's responsible AI boards you've got to get through. If you're identifying a pre-selected subset of AI apps that interest you in the marketplace, it's going to speed up the contracting you've got to go through. Raj hit on this earlier, and I was just kind of grinning when you did, was talking about speed. Right, so this one's important, 90%. This is real data. right? We went from 60 days to procure applications that sit in the Microsoft Marketplace. We're talking if we've gone through regular resellers or direct negotiations with the suppliers, possibly some of you in the room, I don't know. We went from 60 days down to 6. Now, that's not our entire contract estate. We'll get there. But on items that we contract through the marketplace, we went from 60 to 6. That's massive. To put it into perspective, I had one of my team tell me, I literally got a deal done in 3 hours that in the past would have taken me 3 weeks. Simply because of all the back and forth, right? So the speed is there. And it's a competitive advantage, right? And you guys know that. Speed, competitive advantage, it enables organizations of any size, right, to get ahead of, who you need to be next to market or quickest, to your next customer, right? Biggest thing for us too, big win for me, is being the global company that Mars is, we also contract with its various global markets. So for those of you that have those types of roles, I think this will resonate with you. When you contract outside of the US and outside of we'll say the EU, a lot of times there's special legal or regulatory considerations that you've got to do, you've got to take care of. That's legal, talking to legal, there's a lot of translation of documents that happens. But because of how Microsoft contracts and operates within these countries, when you sign a deal through the marketplace, it just goes through. You don't need all the AUAs, you don't need all the amendments, you don't need all the addendums. Now I'm not talking tech here, I'm talking, the policy and the procedure stuff, but the quicker that you can get those deals signed, the quicker you can get the AI into the factory, the quicker you can spin up your digital twin investments, right? So that's another thing to look at is, even on low spend, look marketplace first. That's how I direct my team. Always look marketplace first, because for us, it speeds things up massively. This slide for me, right, we talk about digital technologies. You see the procurements over there in the one corner, security and finance. I've been hammering on this, but the reason for that is that integrated teams, right, they unlock innovations and efficiencies. So by having all your teams talking together, you get that speed that's needed to procure quicker, and at the end, the product's in the hands of the people that need it. It's in the hands of your techs, it's in the hands of your designers, it's in the hands of your architects, quicker. The frustration that they get that it took X amount of months to get this thing in place is now gone, and they're off to the races, and they're delivering quicker, which is good for everybody, right? Deliver faster is a good thing. An example on this one for me, I look at it is, we look at how we renew, because these contracts come up for renewals every couple of years. And one of the things we're looking at with the marketplace is how do we really drive the bonus that as we draw down on the MAC through doing renewals, how can we really supercharge that? So one of the items that I've got my team working on, and we've been partnering with, I think you mentioned before, was Claysar. Mm-hmm. We've been partnering with them on how do we track what's MAC eligible, what's not. Like, how do I know what I can get the drawdown on? So we'll look at different tooling. We'll holistically look at our entire environment, and we'll say, listen, we're going to go ahead and we're going to renew for 2 or 3 years on what typically might have been a 4 or 5 year renewal. Why do we do that? Because we've got a MAC, and the MAC runs 7 to 8 years. So we're going to get multiple renewals during the same MAC cycle, and that acts as a buffer for when you have those consumption gaps that I mentioned earlier. So that's something to think about, right? Don't give up value on the deal to have more often, have more renewals more often. But work with your teams, work with your suppliers, right? Maintain the value on the deal, but renew maybe a little more often, because you then can have a drawdown on that MAC a little more often. And for me, the way I look at it is contracting is shifting from bottleneck to an enabler, right? So supporting the business velocity, legal, again, procurement, business sponsors, they all benefit, from faster, smarter contracting. Accelerated contracting means accelerated results, so we go to enabling. And that's the big thing. Like I said before, my team's looking at 2 to 5 years out. and they continue to look to contract as best as they can, quicker to get the drawdown on the Mac. And the nice part is because you've got that, I'll call it that synergy with all the functions, it makes for better, tighter contracting, which again brings the tech in quicker and faster. I think it's my last line. Future initiatives, right? We're building on the foundation, right? We want to have predictive optimization. They talked a lot about observability the last couple of days, a couple of sessions I've been sitting in. That was the buzzword all over for this year. And it's there. You've got to have that observability, but it's not just on the tech side because you got to pay for this stuff, right? You better have observability to where the money is going. So having that observability, Marketplace helps with that. It's one place to go. It tracks all, the vendors and the agreements you've got there. While you're not going to have everything in Marketplace, sorry, Raj, you are going to have and can have quite a bit, right? And again, I would definitely, encourage you to look at that as, again, as maybe a tool in the toolbox that you guys haven't really used much. Last thing I'd say is that I think for me, the journey with Microsoft and the partners when it comes to Microsoft Marketplace, for me, it's been a pleasure. The single biggest bonus when I think of Microsoft Marketplace, Raj called it out, it's the one-for-one drawdown. Go talk to the competitors. They've got their marketplaces, and there's a place for them. Again, sorry, but there's a place for them. But that one-for-one drawdown that Microsoft does, it's by far the competitive advantage that they've got when it comes to their marketplace. So don't get rid of that, please. But that's my story with Mars and how we've used Marketplace. I'll hand it back to Raj, and I'm around if anybody wants any questions as far as like how do we get it in how do you get started if you haven't used it, or how do you approach suppliers that have told you that they can't go through the Marketplace? Well, they can. So cool. Thanks.
On the one-on-one drawdown to keep it going, I think we might need an email from you to Satya. Thank you so much, Matt. I know, I've seen your slides and I've seen your presentation, but each time you speak and you just give life to the Microsoft Marketplace and how Mars utilizes it, I think it gives me a thrill. So thank you again.
You're welcome.
So I know we talked about, different concepts. I know Matt talked about how he puts it into action at Mars. How would you think about the Microsoft Marketplace in your organizations? And one way to think about it is on this slide in terms of looking at it from your Azure adoption situation. So for example, this slide shows a scenario from low Azure adoption customer to a higher Azure adoption customer. If you are a low Azure adoption customer, one of the things you could do is work with your IT to identify solutions on the Microsoft Marketplace that are trials or pay-go solutions, so lower risk for something to try out. If you are a little further along, you can look at, as Matt mentioned, renewals that are coming up, and you can transact some of those renewals through the Marketplace. If you are somewhere in the middle and you have a cloud commitment, if you have a Mac with us, you should definitely look up Mac-eligible solutions and try to figure out if those solutions can be transacted through the Marketplace. And I know there are probably partners also in this hall here. If you are a partner, one of the first things that you should do, or you should advise your sales team about when they are talking to a customer, is ask them if the customer has a Mac. Because if they have a Mac, your sales process and your sales cycles will be faster. And I think that's a net of what Matt talked about. So if you are on the customer side, if you have an Azure Mac agreement, look up what are the Mac-eligible solutions, make sure those are being transacted through the Marketplace. And if you're on the right end and you have a Mac and you're already driving a lot of transactions through the Marketplace, as Matt mentioned, Mac contracts could be 5 to 7 years. When you're coming up for renewal with your Mac, make sure you're sizing your Mac the right way by incorporating the solutions that you intend to procure over the next 3 to 5 years, possibly through the Microsoft Marketplace. So if you want to think through this in a few steps, I'm going to lay it out schematically. The first step is obviously you have to identify which solutions are running in your cloud environment. And I know I spoke about it, Matt spoke about it. There are tools, User Lane, Claysar, two of them. Claysar, like I mentioned, if you give them access to your single sign-on, they will identify all the solutions running across your multi-cloud environment, not just Azure, across your multi-cloud environment. So you will have a list of all the solutions that you can possibly consider. The next step is obviously, as Matt mentioned, you would have to talk to the finance folks, the legal folks, the other stakeholders to make sure that they are aligned with the path that you're planning to take, which is transact with the marketplace. Step 3, as I mentioned, you have the list of all your applications. Make sure you're mapping it to MAC-eligible solutions so you know which solutions can be transacted to the marketplace. If you're signing a new MAC or an Azure consumption commitment or renewing a consumption commitment, make those solutions are included in your sizing planning. Step 5, I just want to take a minute on that. So you, as Matt mentioned, we have a lot of amazing partners who are publishing solutions on the marketplace, and we keep growing the portfolio of partners who are transacting on the marketplace. But there are new AI solutions, new agents coming up every day. You might not find that on the marketplace just yet. But we wanted to make sure that you are aware that Microsoft can help them, those partners or those suppliers, onboard onto the marketplace. So if you are a customer and you've come across a few suppliers who are not aware of the marketplace or possibly aware but don't know how to get on the marketplace, ask them to join our 𝗦𝗽𝗀𝗶𝗶 program. They will become a partner. And as a part of the 𝗦𝗽𝗀𝗶𝗶 program, we have benefits. For example, ISV Success is a benefit where we will enroll your supplier at no cost. We will enable them to architect on Azure if required and publish the solution on the marketplace and help them become MAC eligible. So that's step number 5 as something to keep in mind. And step 6, as Matt mentioned, use private offers. You can set up these transactions in a way that works best for you. So you have that flexibility once you get to that level of structure. Now, both Matt and I spoke about a lot of concepts. I know some of this might be new, some of this you might have heard about it, but all of this is available in a single site. It's on our Learn page on our doc site. So if there's one thing I would request you to take away is, if you don't mind, copy down that first link, aka.ms customer docs. Everything you would need as a customer to understand the marketplace, to utilize the marketplace, to transact on the marketplace is available on that customer documentation site. And on that documentation site, you will also see a procurement playbook. So we've kind of collated all the best practices that any customer would need to just understand how do you transact through the marketplace. So again, you'll find the procurement playbook on the same site, but if you bookmark aka.ms customer docs, you should be able to get all of that content at one site. Now, Matt and I spoke about, I would say, procurement from an enterprise lens. Marketplace goes much beyond that, right? And one of the things I would request you to do, if you have time, is meet us at the marketplace, at the hub, where we have a marketplace booth. We have partners who have transacted on the marketplace who are at the booth with us, and it's a great way to connect with various marketplace SMEs, get your questions answered. So we are in Moscone North. I think it's section F, but right at the end, we have a pretty big marketplace booth. So drop by there. If nothing else, pick up a few swag and grab a donut. So we have a marketplace donut wall where you can pick a donut that suits you. So if nothing else, come by to say hi, get your questions answered, pick up a few swag, and enjoy a donut. And Matt and I spoke about, as I mentioned, procurement from an enterprise lens, but there are other sessions to keep in mind. So there was a session yesterday around Microsoft Marketplace, the very first one, which provided more of a holistic view around the Microsoft Marketplace. So if you're new to Microsoft Marketplace, it happened yesterday, but it's available on demand. I would certainly check it out. There's also a theater session coming up on Thursday. And then, as I mentioned, I know there's partners probably in the room. If you are a partner or if you're a customer trying to work with suppliers, and if you want to understand the partner perspective or the partner value add on why a partner should care about the Microsoft Marketplace, because it is truly a win-win situation. There's a lot of benefits for partners to be transacting through the marketplace. There's a lot of benefits for customers to transact through the marketplace. And if you want to hear the partner perspective, there's around 7 sessions on various aspects of the partner experience on the Microsoft Marketplace. That's the last slide. I hope you found value in the slide. Both Matt and I want to make sure the content was relevant. If we want to make sure the next time we're up on stage, we provide you even more insightful content. So if you have a minute, please, scan the QR code. You'll get a small form. Provide us your feedback. Much appreciated. With that, Matt, any last parting thoughts before we send them on their next adventure?
Their next adventure is lunch.
Next adventure is lunch.
Enjoy lunch.
Thank you, everyone.